Hello, this is Naudi Aguilar of Functional Patterns, and I'm proud to announce our first online Human Foundations course. In this program, you are going to learn the foundations of the Functional Patterns training methodology. We start everything from the basic elements of myofascial release, understanding what points you need to pinpoint if you really want to address your structural deficiencies, layer by layer. From week to week, we start covering different layers in terms of myofascial distortion, so that way you eventually become primed to be able to adjust the structural deficiencies in your spine, in your pelvis, and in your shoulders. And that's where we start getting into the corrective exercise elements of what we do at Functional Patterns. As the weeks progress along, the training system gets a little bit more intense as we start gear orienting the connections in your upper and lower body that are going to completely restructure the way that you move. The reason why most people tend to come to Functional Patterns is because they were probably dealing with some kind of a nagging injury, some kind of pain that no traditional methodology could get rid of. They finally come to Functional Patterns, they realize what proper intra-abdominal pressure is, what a proper thoracic extension is, what proper hip extension is, and even though these principles are basic, they have not been covered in most other curriculums. I'm still yet to see them covered in what we cover in any other curriculums, and this is fundamentally why what we do works so well. We can take a lot of conditions that have been seen as extreme, even chronic conditions, and we can mend them if we know what we have to do biomechanically to address these problems. Now, to start, to consider why Functional Patterns work so well, why this 10-week program works so well, is because we look at the body as a tensegrity structure. Well, for one, first we decode that you're a human being that's adapted, whose biology was morphed by the environment over the course of 3-4 million years. It's clear that we've adapted to run and throw and walk as a priority with our movement. Anthropologists know this to be true, so first and foremost, we look at your biological blueprint as a human being. After that, we then look at your body as a tensegrity. These hard points, these sticks being your bones, and these other things being your muscles. And then we begin to think about how these things all move with one another. This is essentially how your body works. No joint moves independent without structurally changing the position of another joint. At least in a functional context. Most people are not operating within a context like this. Most people's bodies are not operating like a tensegrity. Instead, what they're reacting like, I would say, if I'm going to isolate this a little bit further, their bodies tend to react in a fashion like this. Most people's muscles are disengaged in this fashion. Whenever they're standing, they're kind of sitting in their hips with their slouched posture, or they can be completely upright in their rigid posture because they never learned how to move, and they end up finding themselves with this snapping of their tissues every single time that they walk. So if you could just imagine that most people are moving, they're usually moving with this snapping going on. And although to most of you that doesn't seem like a big deal, it is a very, very big deal, because within time, if your body keeps eliciting these types of patterns that are not respecting of tensegrity, what eventually ends up happening is you'll start getting these myofascial distortion, these knots. I mean, the knots aren't really the accurate way of looking at it because distortions happen a little bit differently, but this is what ends up happening as your muscles work this way. What I'm actually looking for when it comes to establishing a tensegrity with your body is actually, if I grab a band here and I begin to think about stretching it and contracting it in this fashion here, that's the kind of reaction that I'm going for. Okay, it's a smooth transition. Whenever one muscle lengthens, its opposite is contracting in this fashion, but it never gets loose. Whenever we have the biceps and the triceps working well with one another, if I activate my bicep and my tricep lengthens through a tension, and I activate my tricep and my bicep lengthens through a tension, and my muscles don't flop like this, that opens up an entirely new doorway to functional movement. When I can take the myofascial slings and I do this, and then, oh, that didn't look too good. If I could take the myofascial slings and I do this, and they sling off, this is what I'm talking about with regards to being a slinger. I know you guys see me on social media always talking about slinging. That's essentially what I mean, is that our body, when it functions correctly, we act as a set of elastic bands. We are whippers in terms of our movement, and that's why Functional Patterns tends to work so well, because for one, we respect your biological evolution, the evolutionary footprint that human beings have left when it comes to their biomechanics, and then even beyond that, we like an engineer begin to decode what's wrong with your body. We start looking at your hips, we start looking at your shoulders, your knees, your ankles, and these are all things that you're going to get within this 10-week program. You're going to learn how to turn your body from this rigid snappy isometric stabilizer into this fluid, whippy, slinging type mover, and that is very, very different than what most people can even imagine in our culture. So that's why I'm really excited to actually release this content, because it is going to change a lot of lives, and I hope that you guys try it out. I know it's going to change many people's perceptions upon how they view their bodies and the bodies of everybody around them. Even the original Human Foundations course that I had already done that, but this is a much, much deeper elaboration than what I was doing before. Anyways, I do hope that you guys found this video to be informative, and I hope you guys try this product out and let me know what you guys think of it. This is Naudi Aguilar at Functional Patterns, reminding you to train intentionally and not habitually. Take care.